Welcome to New Frontier Cast. It's been quite a while since our last one. Today we're talking New Frontier Craft 1.9.0, the most likely next update. I'm pretty settled on that being the next update. We're not going to have a 1.8.7. I think we really need to start diving into the industrial side of New Frontier Craft. So, last thing I said about updating is that I would start doing it in smaller increments because these year-long updates are just really painful on the community end, and when they come out, everything becomes incompatible again. Unfortunately, looks like this is probably going to be another big update still. But after this update, things will start coming in much smaller pieces. The problem with this being a big update is what I want to do is add in mine carts and starting to add in ways of moving items around. But with adding one thing from the industrial update calls for many basic things to be added, like power and whatnot. So that's basically what 1.9.0 is going to be. Its big idea will be improvements in the minecart, being able to move around and starting to manipulate items like automatic crafting, and what else? Yeah, mostly just power and minecarts, because, and we'll get into power later, it'll be required for the item half of this. So another big thing that needs to start getting done that we will probably make in 1.9.0, and one of the reasons it will be 1.9 beyond the just basic addition of power in its basic form, because we aren't even going to have wires, is we really need to do some refactoring of the New Frontier Craft code. The code has gone back to being closed sourced, and this is good because that means I can just give the code to the people who are developing it like in its raw form, and we can really start fixing some of the big issues of beta. And one of the big issues that needs to be fixed that we will try to fix in 1.9 is the issue of the ID cap on blocks and items. What I want to do is have all blocks and items derived from one basic game object, where it has an ID, it can tell if it's a block or an item. It's a lot more fluidic because instead of passing around a block or an item in the code, you could pass around a game object. It'll make the code a lot more cleaner. But I mean, changing that is going to change so much code. It's going to provide lots of benefits in the end, but it's going to take a while, and it's not going to actually provide any new things on the surface yet after we finish it. That's the kind of rough part of refactoring, is it takes a lot of time, and ultimately to the users, nothing has really changed. It's only really changed for the programmers, and we are really overdue for some serious refactoring. So that's going to take a good bit of time. So because of that nature, it will probably be another pretty hefty update. But we do have a couple of programmers now. It's not just me. We've got Logan. We've got Road is starting to learn how to program. Anyone else that might come by. But, I mean, Logan and I are both pretty dedicated to improving New Frontier Craft now. Plus, I'm not adding in a ton of stuff industrially. So hopefully this won't take super long, but we'll see about that. Another big issue of New Frontier Craft 1.9.0 is we have gotten pretty settled on the feel of New Frontier Craft, and that feel does not include anything industrial at the moment. So it's going to be weird to try to start adding in things industrially. I got to be very careful about my choice of style of how things look, because I don't want to break what we have right now. There's definitely going to be some changes in some of how the ingots look, I believe, or metal blocks look. Those change over time, but as the industrial update comes around and I start getting a better feel for how the future of New Frontier Craft will look, which I hope to be sort of a rustic sort of, not really post-apocalyptic, but like post-civilization vibe from the machinery that you're building. As if the world's best days were behind it, and now you're just building this stuff because, I don't know, you're just a random college student that found himself in the wilderness. I kind of explained this before in a previous podcast. There are a couple of changes. What I said before, I do want to go a little bit more rustic than I previously made it out to be. I'll get into that a little bit more later. But for example, like I said, I might want to add in an LED. I think that's just a little weird. I don't think we're going to see LEDs in New Frontier Craft. So, otherwise, the new things that will be added in, I already said minecarts. There will be 2 things industrial that will be added in. Well, I guess 3 technically, but 2 go together, which is power will be introduced through generators and batteries. Again, we will not have wires yet. I need to figure out, not just because like I want to shrink the amount of stuff being added in, but also because wires are going to need some weird algorithm to work properly. I don't really know how Industrial Craft does it yet, because like transferring power over long distances, if there's a lot of connections, is going to be a weird data structure to add into the game. So I got to figure out how to do that efficiently. But for now, we will be able to generate power through, at first, 4 main ways, and then there will eventually be a 5th way. Actually, there might be a 6th way. And then we will be able to move that power around through batteries. Now, that might sound rather annoying, and it might be a little bit here in the first update, but when we are going to be generating power, hopefully the batteries will be big enough to store power so that it's not very annoying. Mostly the rechargeable ones, you'll be able to move around a lot of power through just battery boxes. And you might just be able to set up your generator just right in front of anything that needs power for the time being. So the other side of 1.9 will be item processing, where you'll start to be able to organize and manipulate items through means of automatic crafting, and piping to a degree through moving items through like mine carts, like a minecart chest, loading and unloading those items, and the improvements to mine carts will add more to that ability beyond just minecart chest. So let's start getting into the more detailed parts of this that I have ironed out. For minecarts, there obviously needs to be some fixes to bugs. On the server, it is just stupid annoying right now. That will come first. Second, I think a very basic need is to make the furnace minecart more useful. I think probably just to make it a lot more powerful, possibly twice as powerful as it is right now in terms of just pushing power. So if we are to start relying more heavily on minecarts for item transportation and whatnot, which I think will look super cool and feel very Minecrafty, having iron as the only way to make rails is probably not the best idea because of how rare iron is right now. Now, granted, you're still going to need iron either way because iron will be needed to make the mine cart itself. But if you only find one iron vein for a while, like that's going to suck if you really want to start building onto, some factory. So what I'm thinking of adding in is some form of wooden rails, which have a lot more friction, slow you down a lot more, but are still usable for minecarts. And this is where furnace minecarts will come in, because if you just, powered rails still need iron. And if you're relying super heavily on wooden rails, then you're like, it'll be inefficient because of how often you would need booster rails for the minecart to keep going at a high speed. But because the furnace minecart constantly has force pushing it forward, your furnace minecart can easily navigate wooden rails and push minecarts through those. But of course, the cost of that is using up power, using coal and charcoal and whatnot to power the furnace minecart through wooden rails. The two tracks off the top of my head that I definitely want to add in 1.9, there'll probably be more in the future of 1.9 point whatever versions, but the first two that definitely need to be added in, one, just for fun, a bouncer track, which will fling a minecart into the air. It'll give the minecart some vertical motion. I believe this was in Railcraft. I just love the concept so much that I'm like, I just want to add that. I believe it'll be pretty simple because all I have to do is make it detect the minecart, which there's already code for that, and give it a ton of upward force. So hopefully that won't be too hard to make. The second thing, which will be a lot more complicated, is the docking track. So when a minecart comes up to this, it'll lock right into the center if it is turned off. This docking track will be made for connecting to some sort of hopper that will load and unload the items. And we'll get into that later, because the hopper won't just be for minecarts. So let's actually get into that now. For power, the big idea that I've decided on power is that I'm not going to try to make power something that starts creeping into all sorts of areas of the game. You need power to move your minecart forward. Powered rails will actually need some form of energy to work, or things like that. That will not happen. I don't want to manipulate the original game as it is. Power will only add additional things. So in this case, what power will do is the hopper. I've heard a couple of people say the hopper in the modern game is overpowered because it doesn't cost anything to just reorganize and move items around through the hopper. It will cost power to unload items and move them around now. The hopper will take a little bit of power to process these things. So as you can see, this will open up a whole new field, but at the same time it costs things. So you'll start building generators and whatnot to support your machinery. But the original game will stay intact. So the debate still is, the one thing that might get changed through power is lighting. I'll speak more about this later, and know that in the previous podcast about the Industrial Update, I was pretty sure that we would need it, that using power to create sustainable lighting will become a thing. At the moment, I'm not sure, and that's what we're going to be debating for the next while before we come around to a lighting update. But more on that later. So let's talk about generators. How are you going to make power? Let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, technically 6 different ways. One of them is in question, and one of them will not be added in 1.9. So for just raw heat, what I want to make is a boiler, and this will probably be one of the first industrial things I actually add into the game while beta developing it, where the boiler will not be able to produce power by itself. Beneath it will be a furnace to generate heat, just a normal furnace. And I think this will be a really good way for me to start figuring out where stylistically New Frontier Craft will start fitting in on an industrial level, because the boiler should match the furnace and looking like some sort of, sort of steam power. So the broiler, The boiler will take up 2 blocks. It'll be like a bed when you place it. So it'll be like this big tank, and it needs some form of heat. It will be crafted with a bucket of water, a bunch of iron, a turbine, which will be the turbine will be made of a motor, like an electrical motor, and probably some extra iron to make it a turbine. The turbine itself is going to need like a magnet, or the motor itself will need like a magnet, some copper, some iron. The exact crafting recipe for that is still to be determined. The other thing that you can use to heat up the broiler, man, I keep calling it a broiler, is geothermal power. And this is the one that's kind of in question. You'll basically put a block that takes in heat from lava, just general area lava, not like putting in a bucket of lava into the block itself. And it will heat the broiler and produce power. This will be cool because like you're not really using up fuel, but you will to a degree. As the power generator keeps getting power from lava in the area, there will be a little bit of a chance that it'll pick out a lava and make it obsidian because it's totally absorbed the heat from that. It'll be mostly chance-based. The chances decrease the lower you are in the game. So you'll want to build your geothermal power generator pretty deep in the ground. Because if it's very high up, they're going to cool down a little too fast, and you won't be able to get that much power out of it. How exactly that'll all fit together, I'm not sure, and that's why it's kind of in question, but I still think it's a pretty good idea. Either forms of geothermal or a furnace will produce a medium amount of power. The next way is water, and this is a little tricky because water is very free in the game once you have a bucket. You can replicate water. So where water will become... the advantage of water is it will be very free once you set it up. It will only produce a little bit of power, but it'll be very consistent in producing a little bit of power. The issue of water is that it's going to take up a lot of space. You're going to need a lot of flowing water on top of like a power generator block for a water turbine. And that's just for one water turbine. So if you don't have that, it'll start producing a lot. Like if you just have like 5 blocks of water above the actual turbine block, it's only going to produce a little bit of power. So if you really want to do a lot of hydroelectric power, you're going to have to build this big area of water to get all of that water pressure to give you that power. And it's only going to produce a little bit of power too. For wind, ideally, I imagine there being some sort of rotating windmill thing on the front of the block. I'm not sure how big it will be. I'm just imagining maybe only 3 blocks big. But either way, or like 3 blocks in diameter. And then you'll have like a bunch of like spinning wind turbines up in the air. This will also produce only a little bit of power. The higher you put that, the better. So it'll be kind of opposite the geothermal. That geothermal needs to be really deep in the ground. Wind will prefer to be higher up in the air. It won't produce that much power during a normal day. If it's raining, storming, it'll produce a lot more power. So it'll be kind of inconsistent. But again, for the most part, over time, it will be pretty consistent in giving you a little bit of power. Then there's going to be solar. So this one will be just kind of between low and medium power, but it'll be more expensive in material, and it's going to need direct sunlight in order to work. And that's the basic idea of solar. And the one that will not be added yet is nuclear. So uranium is still not going to have a use yet. That's going to be a whole update in itself. Mostly when power starts really having a lot of uses, because that will be a high power generator. But we don't really have anything that requires that much power. So, as you might have thought in hearing this, oil is going to start having uses in this update. Oil could be used for the heat generation. It might be used in like a motor as part of its crafting recipe as like a lubricant. I'm not 100% sure on that yet, but yeah, oil will definitely get use in this update. So now that we've spoken about generators, let's speak about batteries. I actually have pretty detailed ideas on how these batteries are going to work. I'll give you a general idea here briefly. So there's going to be two forms of batteries. And in each of those two forms, there's going to be three types of batteries. So the two main forms are going to be rechargeable and non-rechargeable batteries. The rechargeable batteries will not be able to stack, and they won't therefore be able to carry as much power in any form of inventory because you can't stack them. One-use batteries, however, could stack a couple of times. It's not going to be like 64 stack, but it's going to be like 4 or 8 stack, but depending on the battery. Because you can stack that inside of a battery box, which the battery box is going to be just a general way to charge and uncharge batteries in the physical block world. The single-use batteries will be able to carry a lot more power in a smaller amount of space, and they'll probably have a little bit more oomph behind them. But of course, the rechargeable batteries are going to have a lot of other advantages of just being rechargeable. You don't have to constantly create new material to get power. So, and I mean, the cool thing about one-use batteries is you can just get power out of them. Whereas a rechargeable battery is going to need to get charged first from a generator. So the one-use batteries, let's talk about what materials you'll need. The three sets within each of these is going to be like a low power battery, a medium power battery, and a high power battery. The low power battery for one-use batteries will need sulfur, copper, and zinc. So the cool thing about New Frontier Craft is I did set up the game such that it has most of the common materials we use in everyday things. And that was very intentional. You know, the more common things in New Frontier Craft are either common because they're just really abundant on Earth, or because they were one of the first metals that humans found as civilization grew. So a cool thing that already came out of that is the low power battery just using copper and zinc. And anyone who's played New Frontier Craft for half an hour has probably found copper and zinc, and sulfur or gunpowder. I don't remember which one it's called in beta at the moment. I think it's called gunpowder. But it will need that. And those are pretty basic materials you can get early game. And those are the first types of batteries that were invented in real life. So, all these batteries are based off of real-life material batteries. So that's cool. So the low-power one, you'll actually be able to get really early game and be able to start powering things if you really want. At the moment, it's going to be more useless. I mean, it'll be kind of nice to use up your copper and zinc if you want, just to get some power out of it, because you probably have a lot of extra copper and zinc in your chests. But the medium power battery will need zinc, coal, sulfur, and tin. These are based off the alkaline batteries that we usually use in all of our small devices. And that one will provide like 4 times as much power as the low power battery. But you heard coal is in that, and in New Frontier Craft, coal is kind of a valuable resource, so that's why it's medium power. The high power battery is a little bit more interesting. It is based off of the button batteries that we use in even smaller devices. And those button batteries are so small because they're really expensive to make and have a lot of power capacity. So in New Frontier Craft, that will just need silver and zinc. Because it needs silver, and silver is a lot rarer, it will be a lot more expensive to create. But it won't actually use any of the other random stuff. It's just going to be purely metal. And that will be the high power one. And that will also be able to stack a lot because it is based on a small battery. So the high power one use will definitely get a lot of use. So let's get into the rechargeable batteries. The low power one is based off car batteries. It's going to need lead, copper, and sulfur, or gunpowder. The medium and high power ones are both based on rechargeable nickel batteries. So the medium power will need nickel and cobalt, and the high power will need nickel, cobalt, and titanium. These are based off of, I think they're called nickel metal batteries, because it can be that metal means any other metal can be replaced here to make it a rechargeable battery in real life. But yeah, since we don't have lithium in the game, there's no lithium ion batteries in New Frontier Craft, but nickel will do. So, I've already said the issues of this is that we can't just be transferring power from a generator into something that wants power with wires yet. It will be solely through batteries for the time being. And because it is just going to be the hopper really that wants power, hopefully that's not too annoying. With the battery box, just placing a bunch of battery boxes next to the hopper with really high-powered stuff in it should make it last for quite a long time. For instance, let me try to do a calculation quick in my head. If you had a high-power rechargeable battery, just one high-power rechargeable battery in the battery box next to a hopper, the hopper will be able to pull, I believe, 600 items. And that's like about 10 stacks of stuff, and that's just one high-power rechargeable battery. So hopefully it won't be that annoying. It'll start being pretty cool to have power in the game, and start seeing how people interact with that. So, one thing to get into before I start talking about other miscellaneous things is the basic idea of power and light, and laying down what I think of the current state of the idea of using power in lighting. So, one obvious thing that this would make power a lot more valuable, which would be really interesting because then setting up renewable sources of power and whatnot, or high sources of power if you really have a lot of things that need power, like a huge mine or something like that, would be really interesting because those will be very highly valued as to something that you can put in the game if you want to make cool automatic crafting stuff, or cool future machinery that will be in the game. This will give it a lot more value. But this is obviously going to create a lot of issues in terms of gameplay, and those are going to be the things that need to be solved if we ever want to see that become so valuable. Or if we really want that to be valuable or not is also up for debate. But if it were to be added in, torches won't go out fully. They'll become like halfway dim, which even halfway dim in terms of technical game numbers, it's probably going to be like 2/3 dim. But they're not going to go totally out, so you'll still be able to see where the torch is. The cave will still be sort of lowly lit. I think that's a cool idea. Will it be annoying? Probably. Obviously, they'll have to have a good bit of time behind them before deciding to go out. There's going to be a little bit of chance behind that because what I'll probably do is use the metadata on a torch for it to slowly count down with some chance. So it'll probably take like, let's say 3 to 5 minutes for it to go from metadata 0 to 1, and then 1 to 2, 1 to blah, 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 until it hits metadata 15, which is the highest number that metadata can be. It'll still be more consistent because of that, but there's still going to be some random chance of a torch going out. It'll be very, very rare for one to go out like within one Minecraft day. It'll be very, very rare, but possible for one to basically never go out. Oh, my cat has arrived. Hey, cat. Okay. Another big question is, where would glowstone fit into this? Will glowstone be this always lighting forever on thing that'll give glowstone a ton more value in the game? If it's not already valuable, because it is already brighter than torches. And it's just a cool looking, a solid block instead of a little torch for light. I'm not sure. Will glowstone like slowly die out until you put it in the sun again, where it like recharges? That would mean that like glowstone would need a lot of metadata. And glowstone going out, just not sure on that one. So that one's up in the air. I would obviously need to make it possible to relight torches pretty easily. So a basic thing you could always create is 2 sticks in a crafting matrix. Will create a basic relighter that will last you like 16 times or something like that to relight torches. A flint and steel would probably get more uses added onto it, and the flint and steel could relight a torch. An actual lighter using oil made with like aluminum or something like that, based off of, real life lighters, would have a ton of uses. It would basically last you like how long osmium would last you. And you could always just have a lighter in your pocket, which would be kind of funny. That's just to relight any torches. So yeah, obviously relighting torches cannot be costly, and hopefully that alone makes it pretty sound like it's not going to be bad to relight torches in terms of material usage. Another big problem that we run into here is just powering your lights. I have not quite figured out in my head, although I'm starting to get a basic idea of how I could do it based off of, in the general area, when you place down an electrical light, it'll search for not necessarily a source of power, but like a form of wiring. And if it can find one within 16 blocks or something like that, then it will connect to that and draw power from that, even though there's no actual physical connection. Because what I don't want is you having to go down in your mines, place wires everywhere just to light your mines, so that, the big advantage of electrical lighting is as long as you have power, it will never go out. And that'll be the cool aspect of it. So I've thought of other ideas beyond, I don't really want a physical block of a wire. I've thought of placing down blocks that have like cable inside them. And when you place it down, it will search within the chunk or the chunk nearby for any of those other blocks that have been placed. And if there's a direct way to connect them, it will connect through just like a wire-looking thing. So it won't actually be like a block. It'll be more like an entity of a wire. And you could also cut the wire, I guess. That's kind of what I'm thinking of. Maybe this will be a hard mode only, where once you switch it in the hard mode, suddenly torches and lights will need power or have time before they go out. Of course, I would need some sort of a warning before going into hard mode for it to be like, you're about to have your lights rely on power, beware. Or maybe it should be like a mode that you start in the main menu that says, will power be needed to do lighting? that sounds like kind of a cool compromise. Um, and that might be the way it gets done either way, but yeah, the real question is, should it be just part of the normal game experience? Um, this obviously will not be determined in 1.9.0. This is still future 1.9 point something, but it will probably be 1.9 point something if we go through with it. Either way, there will be light bulbs in the game. It will cost 1 tungsten, 1 copper, and 3 glass to make a light bulb. A whole stack of light bulbs. Which means the bulbs will be... there's 1 tungsten to create 64 light bulbs. And 1 coal makes 4 torches. Which means that 1 tungsten would be equal to 16 coal in terms of lighting power. So that will start having a lot more value and make it a lot easier to light up a lot of big areas. The bulbs are either going to be equivalent to or brighter than torches, which means they would have to be as bright as glowstone if we want to bump it up a notch. That will probably be based on game balancing and seeing how overpowered that will be, or maybe not overpowered it will be, but necessary. But either way, we're definitely going to see electrical lighting. Whether or not they rely on power, who knows? But it will be a lot easier to create tungsten light bulbs instead of torches. Okay, running a little dry on my voice. So, a couple of previous things I want to address from the previous industrial update video is we talked about the idea of gold being split into smaller versions of itself. I think this is a pretty good idea. An ingot could become 8 nuggets, and 1 nugget could become 8 niblets. I just thought that was a fun word, so might as well use it. And then that means 1 ingot equals 64 niblets. And that's a really nice number for Minecraft. So I think that's what I would do. We're probably going to see that in 1.9. The other thing that we might see is gold, when you fire it in a furnace, will it give you an ingot or will it now give you a nugget? Because gold is too common right now. I did want gold to be a much rarer object. Now, a lot of you might be saying, whoa, gold is already really rare. That's likely because you don't know that gold generates in gigantic clouds. If you find 1 gold, dig out that general area. You'll find a lot of gold. A lot of people don't know this, and because of that, there's a large disparity in how much gold people have, whether or not they know that or not. So if you know that, gold becomes too common, and I want it to be something kind of cool that you find in dungeons and whatnot in the future. So I might make it so that firing gold ore will give you a nugget instead of an ingot. And gold will have uses in the future through something like electrical components, mostly computing components. But I still want gold to be kind of this cool, high-value thing that's rare. And another idea that was spoken about, I believe, is minecarts being able to contain liquid, like a certain minecart that can contain liquid, just as there's a minecart to contain a chest and furnace, which I think is probably a good idea. We're probably not going to see that in 1.9.0, but we'll probably see that in the future, because that means you could like move oil around in minecarts, and that'll look really cool and be really cool. One change that I'm going to make, I said I was going to use lead in geothermal generation. I don't think I'm going to use lead. I'm not sure where I got that idea from. I'm probably going to use tungsten, because tungsten is the heat-resistant metal, the super heat-resistant metal in New Frontier Craft. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I want to say about previous industrial video. Other things that will probably be in the 1.9 series of updates, fixes to boats too, because we are fixing transportation of minecarts, so might as well fix boats. Probably not 1.9.0. I also want to work on the Skylands, being able to access it, changing the generation a little bit. You saw me talk about on the Discord how I want it to be like the in-dev Skylands, where it's like these, floating island masses instead of this big blobby chunk that is in the background of the beta code right now. The Nether obviously needs some work. It's kind of pointless at the moment beyond glowstone. And a big thing will be other forms of automation beyond items, like automatic miners. The miner will probably be like a crawler that digs out a 3x3. You just give it a bunch of rail or, well, not or, but and some power like coal or batteries or something like that. We'll definitely see those start popping up. And that's pretty much 1.9, at least the current view of it for the future. I'll start developing it here soon. I'm still writing out plans on how to go about development, so I haven't actually started coding it yet. But yeah, in other news, in terms of community, if I haven't already said this, the community has become self-sustaining. I've probably said this a couple times on the Discord, but might as well say it on the channel. The community is self-sustaining. This is awesome. Over time of me being at college, the community has grown like 10%. And that's not a small number. And I'm not going to lie, practically nothing. I was so busy this semester. So it was really cool to return to that. So we had to get that 200 subscribers video done right away once Evan and I were back from college. I believe one of the reasons this is occurring is it is becoming a thing again to go back to old versions. We might be experiencing another beta wave here. But at the same time, like, the community, because it is active now, it doesn't have it, an entire week where no one says anything. The Discord is quite active, and because of that, the server is quite active. That is self-sustaining, even if we don't grow that much beyond this next sort of beta wave that's going on right now. I definitely need to reorganize the Trello. A lot of the ideas that are posted on the Trello right now are pretty old and need to get flipped around a little bit. I also need to start hammering down setting up the Trello for 1.9. Another thing that needs work is the wiki just keeps getting the shaft. I've said this several times, and it's still getting the shaft. It's just the last thing that gets worked on, because I really want to keep creating new content for New Frontier Craft. A lot of people already know. Since the community is still pretty tightly knit, the wiki is not super important. You can pretty much ask one of the moderators. That is, at least there's going to be one moderator online. But the wiki still needs to start getting updated. And now that I'm taking design classes, I might actually really try to work on that wiki and make it look nice instead of a sort of a weird forum version of it. And lastly, but really not least, I'm going to be promoting the Patreon again. And I want to explain to you how I'm going to do the Patreon, because this might really get you interested in supporting New Frontier Craft. I do want to give to people who are supporting the Patreon some form of upgrade, like maybe a way of being able to secretly monitor, well, not secretly, but quietly monitor what the administration is talking about in terms of development and whatnot. You won't really be able to pitch in to the administration group, but you'll be able to hear a lot more information about the development that we say behind the lines. Other things like on the server, you'd be able to maybe get the magic carpet ability, where you could use a glass. You've probably seen me walk around on the glass sheet. Then you'd be able to kind of fly to a certain degree. I don't know, other things I've thought of, like maybe some form of being able to use the /back command. I don't know. As long as you are supporting it. But here is what I'm going to do with the money. I am not going to be taking it for myself. what I will be doing is making decisions on where the money will be placed. Um, so, for example, let's say I really think we need to make 2 videos on just the server and like 4 things that need to be programmed into the new Frontier Craft code, like, fixing mine carts or updating this redstone thing or something like that, or adding in this generator. I will kind of put a bounty on it, and whoever does it will get that bounty. So if Logan decides to program the fixes the mine carts on the server, and I had put a bounty of $2 on it, he'll get that. If I finish the $2, I'll get it myself. I will be giving into the Patreon myself because I want to support New Frontier Crafts development. I'll be making decisions on the promotions of what needs to be worked on, and like that could also be the wiki. And I'll be making decisions on whether or not if the work was acceptable or not. But that's how I want to treat the Patreon. I really don't want to make it about something that I just get benefits because I've been working on this game for a while and whatnot. No, I want it to be an engine that gets more things done for New Frontier Craft. So I will be putting in money myself, and maybe I'll be taking that money back out myself because I'll be completing a bunch of things in the code. But I mean, if other people are really stepping in, they'll get more of it, more of the benefits. So supporting New Frontier Craft will really support New Frontier Craft monetarily. So that's my general idea for what I want to do with the Patreon. And I will be very transparent on where I'm promoting this, where the money is going. I love transparency. So, yeah. Okay, that was a lot more than I expected to talk about. But with us here is the man, the myth, the legend, Space. How's it going, my guy?
Hey, what's up, man?
It's been quite a while since we've been on
It's
a
been a
cast
very
together.
long time. Yeah, it's been a very, very long time.
Yep,
Worth the wait.
it's been a little overdue to have a cast.
Yeah.
Ah, all right. Well, I've laid out a whole lot of information there. Got any questions for
There's a
me?
lot to go through. Man. Yes, there was a question. I noticed when you were first writing up this draft of the battery system in Discord, I noticed that you mentioned sulfur, and I thought, oh, would that be a new ore or something? And then I realized that it was like gunpowder, right? So
Yeah.
gunpowder used to be called or was renamed to sulfur at some point. And that got me thinking, what if instead of having it be gunpowder or a new ore in the overworld, what if it was something for the nether to have? So you had
Ooh.
sulfur generate in the nether, because that kind of
That's-
fits the spooky theme, right?
That's a
Kinda like
really
a-
good idea. I mean, ghasts
Oh,
drop
you know-
sulfur, if I'm not mistaken, but like
Yeah.
we need something else that drops sulfur.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I might actually write that down.
Yeah, because sulfur's like a yellowy, like toxic mineral, right? Whereas gunpowder is like a greyish, kind of man-made substance.
Yeah. So generally, I think I'm still gonna have the stuff that comes out of Creeper be able to used in the batteries.
Oh, okay.
So then you can get that early game, and it doesn't take going to the Nether, because going to the Nether means you have to be at least tier 4 or something like that, and that's like a couple hours into the game.
Yeah.
So, but there definitely needs to be some new way to get sulfur from the Nether. I totally agree with that.
So what if you had a sulfur ore that was yellow, but if you combined it with like a coal or something, you could then make the gunpowder?
I guess the problem with having a new ore is that the worlds we have right now would become kind of, it wouldn't be necessarily incompatible, but like the Nether would be outdated then.
We would have to wipe the nether, yeah. I don't know if people have been building there. I don't think so.
I guess
Uh,
I've heard very little about building in the Nether.
we'd have to
Um,
check, really. We'd have to do like a poll or something.
yeah, yeah. I guess a problem is the Nether is pretty much oreless at the moment.
Yeah.
So
We could have a
uh,
warp there. So I mean, we're at the point where pretty much anyone can just walk from spawn into the Nether. I mean, there's public portals everywhere, so it wouldn't really allow people to skip. I don't know. We'd have to think about that.
yeah, that definitely needs some thought, but that's a good idea. Because I mean, I want to add in ores into the Skylands. There
Yeah.
won't be
Yeah.
new ores per se, but the ores will generate differently in the Skylands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, cool.
And I guess we very briefly touched on this before the podcast, but I'll mention it again. So I know there were plans to create a Skylands dimension, and there was talk of creating a Heaven dimension, which would be nuclear powered to reach it. So you would create a man-made portal.
So, yeah,
At the
the
same time,
man-made portal one will be, and I don't know when I spoke if I really did speak about this in the podcast yet, because this is kind of the big bad idea, the end game New Frontier craft. Um, but I'm not afraid to speak of it now because I do think it's a really cool idea. The
yeah,
man-made portal, using all this power to bring together to create this crazy portal that you can tinker with the machinery in it, like you can manipulate numbers so that it generates differently. This world won't necessarily be heaven. The heaven dimension will be the one that does not need power. This crazy dimension will need power. So the crazy dimension, which I'll just refer to it as that for now, is a generator of a generator. So a generator will start forming basic ideas for smaller generators that will actually build the world. If you've ever played Mistcraft, that's kind of what I'm going for. But it'll be like this industrial thing where like you can lightly tweak the numbers and it tweaks the seeds, it tweaks the generators, and like you can create your own world. It'll be the end game object. It'll take like a lot of power to create. I had this crazy. I pretty much had the entire generator idea like sketched out in some sketchbook when I was younger. I don't think I have that sketchbook anymore, but there's probably immature sketches. I'll say in terms of ideas. Like I have so much better ideas now and refining the ways of how such a big portal could be generated. But the ultimate the Skyland / Heaven dimension, I kind of refer to the same thing when I say that. That is the
right.
non-power portal. I still don't really know what that portal, or if it's a portal, maybe it's some sort of action you do to get there.
Because the initial idea was sleeping, right? Because that was kind of like Notch's early write-up he did. He said he wanted to create a sleep dimension.
Oh yeah, so that's what they did in the
That's
server.
yeah.
Wasn't there that server mod? That is actually for beta 1.7.3 that
There is a
allows you to
server
do
mod.
that.
Yeah, because the
Yeah.
Skylands generation is actually in the game. It's just not used, but you can access it with plugins or mods,
I
and
mean,
it's actually quite well made. It's quite polished.
yeah. I remember the one gripe I had about it is that when you went to sleep, you wouldn't respawn back where you were. You would respawn back at a single point that like was the spawn block.
Yeah, kind of like Alpha, where
So
you
you
would,
you could only go so far and then you'd wake up.
yeah.
Which would kind of be like, eh. That's not a bad idea, to be honest. I think maybe that could be the way, is some form of sleeping. But what I would want to do is you don't respawn back at a single spawn point. When you wake up, you go back to where you last were in the dream world, the Skylands. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
And it
I don't
also
want
leads
it.
it down to
I don't want it
random
just to be another like portal thing.
Yeah,
I do want it to
absolutely.
be different.
And that's quite fun if it's down to random chance, because then people would be more inclined to sleep at night time rather than just
Yeah.
leaving it or asking for day.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I think that kind of nicely segues into what you were saying previously. You were mentioning that the style of the update has changed. So like for now, like you were saying that your old notebook is you've kind of gone through that. You decided that a lot of these ideas don't really fit your current ideas.
Yeah, yeah,
So one thing you mentioned was the whole style change of things being more like rustic and industrial and kind of
yeah.
shipwrecked almost. I really like that idea. I really hope you kind of bring that into creation because that was kind of what I was hoping for. But I think, as you mentioned, like LEDs and stuff, I thought it was going to be more like a industrial craft or buildcraft, which is still fun, but it isn't the old beta style. Um,
Yeah, I really want to hone in on that old beta style, but like, make an extension in a sense that
yeah,
it goes beyond just that kind of medieval top. It'll actually go into like an early industrial top. Um, so yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of searching for what texture fits best here. Where is this going to really start laying itself down? And I don't know yet. And that said, I do get the feeling that I'm going to be changing a good bit of the metals that I have created, because a lot of my metals, I did change bronze in 1.8.6 because I thought it was a little weird looking. It was an odd recoloring of gold. In terms of like, I just took paint.net, just switched the saturation over here, switched the lightness over here, good
yeah.
enough. And it looked a little odd after a while. So I'm getting the bad feeling that I'm going to be like, I'm going to be redoing a lot of how the metals actually look.
I think that's fine. I actually
Yeah.
quite like the textures. I don't think a lot of them fit the old style, but
Yeah,
then I
that's
feel
kind of what I'm
yeah,
thinking. Like they're not
going in.
bad, but they don't quite fit the old style.
I think NFC definitely has a very distinct style of its own, though.
Yeah, that is true. Um,
Although I don't want to lose the beta style, I think it's inevitable that NFC will have its own
yeah,
feel.
it'll be inevitable in some forms, but I'm going to try to keep it true.
Yeah, and that's
In
nice. I think that's
several.
what people will want. That's what
Yeah,
the kind of people seeking out an old experience will be pleased to see.
yeah,
But I guess also we should go into the second beta wave. So I guess people outside of our kind of inner circle wouldn't be too sure of what that term means. So in 2013, so I'll go back to the site, in fact. So when beta 1.7.3 came out in 2011, people loved the update. It was great. It added pistons. Pistons also like the first proper industrial item the game added. I guess except maybe like minecarts and stuff. But so people loved that update. And then 1.8 came out, which was very different. People hated the generation. The colors were toned down. It was very less arcadey. It was more dark, or less colorful, I should say, like less contrast. Um, it was more focused on magic and storyline rather than like character progression on a server or something, or like a build progression. And a lot of people kind of got tired of that beta, that 1.8 beta release era of the game. So a few years later, I remember looking in 2012, and in 2012, a year after release, there wasn't really any old beta servers. But I'd say in 2013, it really kicked off, and there was this beta wave where lots of beta servers started popping up, and they had very good population, like 40 plus people on some servers. Whereas the
yeah.
first sticky
I mean,
beta,
I was one of the bigger later ones. Sticky beta
yes,
was big.
that was massive. Yeah,
I mean, my beta server alone had around 800 people come through, and I was in the later beta wave, and that's still like quite a
yeah,
few
kind of like
people.
2013, 14 area. I remember because I found your server back when it was
Ah,
branded as
okay.
Quizzones in 1.7.3.
Ah, man, that is so many years ago, though. It's kind of weird to
Yeah,
think about that. It's
that's
like
many
five
years
years
ago.
ago.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. But what I've noticed is, especially on YouTube, so this is also a bit weird. I've noticed something on YouTube where old videos are now being recommended to people, and it's not just like games and stuff. It's just straight up old
That's
old videos.
true. That's very true. I didn't think about
Yeah,
that.
I've recently noticed this, and people in the comments are saying like, "Oh, why is YouTube recommending me this video from 11 years ago?" Or like people who own the video are commenting, "Wow, this suddenly blew up." All the time, I'm seeing this kind of stuff, and I
Yeah.
feel like this has affected Minecraft. One of the
Huh.
biggest ones is that guy. I think it's called Kurt, who's walking to the Farmlands. Is that right?
Yeah.
Kurt J Mag. Um,
Yeah, something like that.
he's suddenly popped up in my recommended everywhere. And if you watch his videos, he says, "Oh wow, it's really weird. People are suddenly watching my videos of him playing 1.7.3."
I mean, that's
And
kind of
lots of
cool that it's the same
yeah,
version.
yeah, it's the same version. And people are making these like nostalgic videos, like remember when we used to play this game or remember this update. And a lot of people are commenting like, "Yeah, man, like I miss beta. I miss like
Yeah,
early
I've been thinking
release."
about commenting on those again, like try out New Frontier Craft, a new experience in that time.
Yeah, I remember
I
that
mean,
was like
that's what I used to do a lot. I
classic.
haven't done that at all recently, and now I'm
No,
starting to see those videos again. I should probably get back to doing that.
so I feel like we've either started or we're on the brink of like another one of these like nostalgic waves. Because the last one was 2013, and that was a long time ago. So
That is very true.
we are due for like another one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the one thing is that a lot of this isn't quite aimed at beta. I'm getting the feeling that,
Yeah.
you
Oh
know,
yeah. Right.
because this is kind of that generation that played the later modern, which was not bad. Um,
No, I mostly
uh,
see 2014 mentioned.
yeah,
2015. People like those
and
versions.
a
Apparently
lot
they
of people will, when I tell them that, like even Quinn slash Sexon, he sent me a meme the other day about it said like me explaining to the Uber driver that Minecraft 1.7 is the best version. It's not necessarily beta 1.7. It's usually the modern 1.7.
yeah.
Which is it's kind of funny how the 1.7 modern is also another
Yeah.
really big staple.
It's the one
What's with
everyone loves.
1.7?
Weird. And there actually is a modern 1.7.3 because when that came out, people were commenting on NFC like, "This isn't that I tried to install, it didn't work." Like,
Oh,
because
I didn't even think about
well,
that.
yeah, I saw a few comments like that. I thought it was funny because they were trying to install this like 2011 mod onto their like 2018 version.
Um,
But yeah, crazy how that's kind of worked out like that. But no, people like the pre combat update stuff. Now I haven't played the combat update at all, so I don't know what that is. But apparently they changed combat. People hated it
yeah,
mostly. Um, yeah, just something interesting to think about. Like kind of like how we used to capitalize on. I think it was more that Sweets. So Sweets is the owner of Beta Lands, which is a big vanilla beta server. He always capitalizes on the new year. So when it's like a new year, he will make a video called 2019 server or like 2020 server, for
yeah,
example. I think using this kind of nostalgic uh, trend and using the current year in video titles, like beta in 2019, beta in 2020. If we start doing that, I think that will really get a lot of traffic to NFC. Definitely.
yeah. Um, hmm. Yeah, because I just kind of have the newer Frontier, but I don't really have any like recent ad videos for New Frontier Craft.
No, I think it would be nice to make another one. Maybe
Yeah,
after
probably not one that will replace the one we have because the one we have is good.
it's timeless because it doesn't really show too much. It just gives you like a good feeling.
Yeah,
So you can apply it to any version of the mod because it doesn't show you too much, but it just gives you like a taste of what's to come.
it's true.
Um, but I guess also talking of like modern versions, something that I'd like to mention is I spoke to a few friends of mine who still play the new version, and something that was mentioned to me that I've never thought about, but it's actually very important. Is a lot of these people who are nostalgic for what we consider newer version, what they're nostalgic for is the progression in the game. So like potions, leveling up gear. So a lot of people they like the story of the game, like getting to the end, getting
Huh.
all the like magic stuff. So by progressing through the game, by going through the like pre-written story, that's how they get enjoyment out of the game. Which got me thinking: the reason that people might be bored of beta is because there isn't really any progression. It's solely based on building. So progression is like on a server. It's your character's progression. It's what you built. It's what you've done. It's what you can show to people. But if you're not a builder, there's not really anything else in beta to do. I mean, you can
Yeah.
explore.
I
You added
mean, there is the progression of
random.
metals, and that usually gets people
Yes,
pretty satisfied with the game. But after
exactly.
they play that through, and if they're not that big of a builder, then yeah, there's usually not as much for them. And there will be more progression now that we'll start adding in mechanical objects.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. If you start
Another
adding
thing
more,
I think really needs to start getting into NFC, the actual game itself, is starting to add in, like, you know how the modern items can have like a description or something like that.
yeah, that's really nice. I like that. Yeah,
We really need that because someone will run into something, maybe not find it on the wiki or a very vague thing on the wiki. Like just having that instant, this metal does this and this, like, boom.
and I mean,
I,
you can just get the community to do that. I would happily like sit down and go through a list of every item and just give it a description. You don't need to
yeah,
be a coder to give
yeah,
something a description. You know. So even I would like happily just sit down and just be like, okay, I'll add a description to every item in the game. That's fine. You know, do it in short bursts. I think that's a
yeah.
very,
I
very
might write that down.
yeah. No, definitely. I like that kind of description thing. Or like for example, I'm gonna self-advertise. If you download Legacy Pack, a texture pack I made for beta 1.7.3 with full NFC support. Link below. No, I'm joking. If you download that, in the UI for the brick furnace, it tells you how to make certain alloys, which I myself find super useful because if I take a big break from NFC, I will forget how to make all the alloys. Um, so maybe if there was
Hmm.
something like that in the vanilla game, I'm not too sure how you would implement that. Maybe if you could mouse over certain ores, it would tell you how to make alloys.
Yeah, or just
Because
like
that's,
have like a little like I button in the inventory of the furnace, and
oh,
you hover
yeah.
over that, and it'll just show.
That's a really clever way of doing that. Yeah, because what I've done is quite like rudimentary. I've just like stuck on a big sticker that says like, "Ugh," and that just looks a bit. It's kind of a bit squished altogether because there's not much space to kind of fit everything in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if you had like a separate button that helped you
Yeah,
out.
to keep 1.9.0, trying to keep it smaller, that's probably not going to be immediate, but like that should be almost
That's a
immediate.
long time ago. Because I think one of the biggest issues I find with NFC is when people ask me like, "What is it? What's in the game?" It's very hard to say. It's very hard to like show them how to install it, show them how to do stuff.
Ooh, that's another thing that I probably should write down right now. I know that the installer isn't working for everyone right now.
Yeah,
Like when we
it's also
first
quite hard to
released.
find. I tried to find it a few days ago for a friend, and I struggled to find the forum thread.
Oh,
So I'm not.
really?
Yeah, I'm not
It's
too
on
sure.
the wiki, but
Yeah, I found it in the end, but I had to search a bit.
so I know that for a while the installer pretty much worked with everyone, but recently I've been hearing of cases of like it won't find it'll go to the extract, and I don't know if it extracts or not, but it won't be able to find the file that it extracts. I know that Evan actually had the problem, and at least that's nice to have someone who actually has the problem, so that I can try to get rid of that bug. But yeah, the installer is bugged a little bit right now.
Because I think one of the biggest things to get players playing is just accessibility, like
Yeah, yeah.
getting some
There was a friend
graphics.
that I met in college that I was able to bond over original Minecraft. I was like, dude, I got to show you my mod. And like I went through getting the installer set up, and then it was just like, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So I
Yeah,
had to
yeah.
install it. I had to take an extra 15 minutes of installing it on his computer awkwardly. Yeah, so it does need some more work, but whew, that's another thing to add to the list.
because I feel like people's attention isn't going to stick around for the wiki. I feel like they need it somewhere to go where they can just be shown everything in the game. They may not need
Yeah,
to understand how it works, but they just need like some pictures. Like this is the new feature, like this is the new dungeon.
yeah,
Because right now, if you say, oh, it adds a bunch of ores and it's cool, and you can rotate slabs, people are just going to be like, oh, okay, I'll check it out maybe. But if you can just like chuck someone a link, and it just has a very clear like graphic of all the content, all the stuff, like the history, maybe something like that would be nice. Like a community,
yeah,
more of a community feature, not really something in game. This is more of a more of a community.
yeah. I mean, this could be just directly with updating the wiki, just trying to get a better front page.
Yeah,
Because like if you read it, you'll get it, but like visually, if you scan over, you don't get any actual information about the game.
like there's a good welcome page that you made. It
Yeah.
has like that house that I made.
Yeah,
In the
I
first...
reread the description recently. I don't remember exactly what my reaction was, but something along the lines of this needs to be changed now.
Yeah, yeah.
New Frontier Craft's goal is always kind of changing a little bit, but
It is really good, but the problem is people don't read,
yeah,
including me. People would just look at that, skip through it, look at the pictures, and be like, "Oh, okay."
yeah. And now that I'm in a design class, like I know of kind of new ways to make it look a lot less like a forum post and a lot more like an actual page in a wiki, even with the pro board setup that we have right now. I think I could still do something pretty cool. I know that someone offered to host an actual wiki website, but I mean, I had no idea who that was. I've never seen him on the server before, and he's disappeared. So
That's the
at the
problem. If we
moment,
start outsourcing stuff and people
yeah,
disappear, because I mean, I'm the same. Like, I'll get into the mood of playing, and I'll like play solidly, and I'll like do a bunch of stuff, talk to a bunch of people, build a bunch of massive things, and then I might not play for a month or two or
yeah.
six.
I mean,
And
I
I
kind
feel
of do
like,
that myself, and I'm the
yeah,
creator of the game.
there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is, if you need something updated and the guy who owns it is gone, for example, like our subreddit is owned by Bot Kieran. And
Oh
Bot
yeah,
Kieran, if you're out there, please contact us. We're very worried about you. It's a bit weird that you've gone missing for 2 years. Very scary. Um, Very nice guy. He used to play on the server every day by himself. I would always log on, and he'd be by himself, like building megastructures.
yeah.
Very chill guy.
I don't know if I've safe claimed that. That's something else I need to write down. I
Oh
gotta
yeah,
safe claim that entire area.
yeah. But the issue
Where's it?
is, he owns the subreddit, and now he's missing in action, and now we can't touch it. Uh, so, yeah, I think Pro Boards is the way forward. I really think it's a pretty good site. It's a pretty good service. I think it's free, isn't it? There might be like a premium that you can buy, but I think it's free.
All right. We'll probably wrap it up here soon. We got
Yeah, I
anything
think
else?
there's not
we're
much else.
we're
Let me-
going on like
This is
an
like a
hour and
2 hour video.
15 minutes. This is a long
Oh,
one.
very nice. So we discussed. I'm
I
gonna
mean,
very,
it's been
very
so long, so
yeah. I'm gonna very quickly interject with this. A note that I wrote down myself. Um, Weapons, new weapons. So I know that you've mentioned
yes.
new bows. I like that a lot. You've mentioned backporting the modern bow. Mixed feelings with that. I think it's good, but I'd like to have the option to still use the old spammy one because it's funny to me. No other reason. I mean, it's dreadful, but I find it funny. Um, and something that's mentioned a lot is flintlocks and muskets and blunderbusses. I think all of those three weapons, especially, I feel like they do fit the kind of pseudo
Yeah,
medieval
they
kind of
kind of do.
weird.
Yeah, at the moment, since I'm now kind of locking in for the industrial update, I'm not sure when the weapons update will appear. Maybe it will be a 1.9. I
It
get the
could be a better
feeling
option, to be
that it
honest,
might
because weapons are a big thing.
be a 1.10. And when I say 1.10, I don't mean like we're going to have to wait forever because we have 1.9.1, 0.2, Like it might be 1.9.3 and then just 1.10. And that'll be the weapons update. And I'll still continue adding industrial stuff after that. But like since the foundation was already laid in 1.9, we could just keep adding more in 1.10 versions. But the weapons update will definitely change a lot of how combat feels. Um, Hopefully not too much, but like give it more
Just different
variety.
options. Something,
Yeah.
something a bit more ranged, I think, would be cool. So what is your feeling on adding these kind of very basic early guns like muskets and blunderbusses? Do you think that
I
that
do
fits
like
the
the
style?
idea. Um,
Yeah,
um, it it's gonna be a little bit to balance it. I
yeah.
remember
It should
the
be
one
expensive. The
the one
each
sort of I can't remember what mod it was that added in those types of guns. But one thing that they did that I think made it feel really good and balanced was the gun took forever to reload. You'd sit there and be like, ch, ch,
Yeah,
ch,
it's good.
ch, ch, and then you're ready to fire. Um,
And something that no survival game ever gets done correctly, and this applies to Rust, Daisy, Miscreated, all of them. They always mess this up. In my opinion, guns should be either easy to make or like common, but the ammo should be hard to get. The ammo should be expensive. That should be the rare part. It
huh.
shouldn't be the other way around. Because if a gun is rare or difficult to make, then it's incredibly annoying when you lose it. But once you have it, you're like a killing machine because ammo is like, a few bits of metal. Bam, bam,
Hmm.
bam.
That's
I
very
feel like
true.
ammo should be expensive, but guns should be relatively easy to make, relatively low tier.
Yeah, and like the we could probably use lead in
Yes,
game as
exactly.
a
Yeah,
yeah.
lead, sulfur, gunpowder. Sulfur would only be from the Nether, so you'd have to be a higher tier of metals, kind of be able to get sulfur to make bullets. Or not bullets, it would be like musket rounds and stuff. There wouldn't be
If we
bullets. That'd be
if
kind
we
of weird.
did have
Weird to say bullets in NFC.
if we did have sulfur as some form of new thing in the Nether, um, what would we combine it with to get gunpowder?
I think the obvious choice would be charcoal. Um, you could even take it a step further and say charcoal from a specific tree, but that might be a bit too
Yeah.
difficult, and messy. But that would be another way of kind of making it more difficult to get a hold of.
Ooh. What if it's like two sulfur, a redstone, and like a coal or charcoal or something like
Yeah,
that?
that would be good.
Yeah. That.
Because redstone is still way too common. I really miss the time. I think it was 2014 when the NFC first came
Yeah,
out.
that's still another kind of
Redstone's
big debate because
super
like
rare.
I
I
still get
love.
a lot also of people just being like, redstone's so rare. I want to use redstone everywhere. I'm like, well, it's
Yeah.
not that rare.
It just made making stuff so much more enjoyable because once you made like one of these auto farming machines that was ridiculously overpowered, just using vanilla mechanics, you could sit back and be like, yeah, that took a lot of redstone. That took a lot of like digging to make. It wasn't like an instant gratification thing that's just worthless.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I think use redstone. It's quite a nice fit. It kind of fits the weird old style of the game anyway. Doesn't really make much sense, but it's good for balance.
Yeah.
And I think that's. I mean, we touched on carts. Carts are very buggy. I'd love to get that fixed. I really like your idea for all the different minecarts. There's not really much else for me to add to that. I think
Yeah.
those are great
Like
ideas.
I've thought of having the ability to like link carts together so you can make sort of a train that go together. Um,
That would be
I
cool, but would it be buggy?
I don't know. Yeah, that's the question. Will it be more or less buggy?
I
Because
think
like in
more,
the
yeah.
current in the current case, if you want a furnace mine cart to push stuff, it is a little weird. And it's just like bump 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 bump. Like if you're trying to push a whole train of carts, just a ton of bumping and it looks kind of whack. And if it was like treating it like as one kind of thing, it might be actually less buggy looking. Maybe there's more bugs on the side effect of it, but um, yeah, that's one thing that
I
I've
feel
been
like
asking myself. I should probably judge that once I see what a much stronger furnace minecart does.
yeah,
Because
and test it on the server as well, because if the server lags out while they're bumping into each other, they're gonna fly into the wall and despawn or glitch under the map.
yeah,
Definitely.
but I mean, just to roast the current furnace minecart, like I believe um, the furnace minecart can push up an empty minecart uphill, and nothing else. If there's something in there, I think it's treated as heavier, and it can't go uphill. Like, that's
Wait,
so lame.
that's really weird. What? I wasn't even aware that that was a feature. That items had weight in carts.
Yeah, I think it's like well, think about how when you leave your cart, its physics change a little bit because like it suddenly gets a lot more friction on the rails.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's easier to push. So what happens when you're inside of it is it's harder to push, but it keeps a lot more of its momentum. But that said, with a minecart furnace trying to push something up that has an entity in it, it doesn't work. It's really, really lame.
Oh, that's cool.
So
It's a good mechanic.
That needs to change.
I wonder if you could use that kind of code, that reference on something else, that weight code. Because I wasn't even aware that that was even a function.
I mean, I'm speaking about this, and I still haven't really looked at how it works myself yet. So hopefully, like, I think wooden rails is a good idea because
I think so too. That's a nice
like
idea.
a lot of people, iron is used a lot already, and that would make iron get used even more. So at least having a backup of something that's slower, it'll probably have like a lower max speed. It'll probably decelerate you a little quicker.
It also doesn't devalue the current rails in the map.
Yeah, it doesn't devalue those rails.
In fact, it might even slightly increase it because then you're seen as having the rich option, kind of fancy option.
And you're just relying on rails more as a form of transport. Like having a higher speed iron rail is a lot more useful if you've got all kinds of setups there. But yeah.
Looking at your power, I think everything sounds really great. I like the style you're going for. I feel like that's a kind of good fit to the old game. The only thing that stuck out to me is solar panels. I don't know how fitting that would be. I like everything else, especially like the wind turbines that are high up. That's nice. The water that's like a cheap energy source. That's cool. But solar panels, I'm not too sure how that would work, and I'm not too sure how powerful that would be.
You are right about that. I think I could make something kind of work there. My initial gut feeling is there's two types of solar panels. There's black ones and there's blue ones. In reality, the blue ones are lower power because it's more raw silicon. And because of that, it doesn't generate power as well as the black ones. I get the feeling that it's going to be like this rusty blue-looking solar panel because I want to go for that sort of lower-end solar panel. That's what the first types of solar panels were. They were all sort of a blue color.
I've just had an idea. Maybe you don't like this, but chrome doesn't really have a use in the game other than making steel. So when you get chrome, you make steel. That's it. Done.
Yeah.
What if the equivalent to solar panels in an FC was a mirror that you'd make out of chrome, shiny material, and you could then heat water to make steam using these mirrors. So you could reflect the sun onto an object, and it would heat it up.
Onto a boiler.
Yeah. So that would still be solar power, but it wouldn't be a solar panel, which is quite a modern piece of electronics.
Instead of chrome, because taking away chrome is still a very highly valuable resource just because it makes steel. Actually, what's used in mirrors is silver, and we could use silver as the form that creates a mirror. That could be interesting. I'm not quite sure how that will actually work.
Yeah, me neither. I've just thought of that now. That's not like a planned thing, so
yeah,
the physics might be a bit broken there, but that would still be a form of solar power. It would just be more steam-based, which is what you touched on before, saying that you wanted more steam-based power rather than like electrics and stuff. Although electrics, like what you said with the like an item that connects up items near it using that kind of fishing wire cable stuff that's in the game.
Yeah, did I say that in the cast, or did I just say that to you?
I think you said it in the cast. I'm pretty sure. I really, really like that idea. So instead of having to connect stuff up with these like blocky pipes, everything in the vicinity of this generator would automatically be connected with that kind of fission wire cable,
Yep.
which is already an entity in the game. So you don't even need to really add a new entity. You just have to repurpose that already
Yeah.
existing wire. Yeah, I think that would be great. I'm surprised no one's done that before. But that would
Yeah.
be a really efficient way of.
I came up with this idea actually only a couple of days ago. Um, I was like, that would, because this would transform trying to wire. I mean, this number one will make, if we want power as lighting, it will make that a ton easier because what you'll end up doing is you'll be placing like a power box, or not a power box, like a wire box here and there.
Yeah.
But like, I'm thinking of doing it where it'll scan within 16 block radius, which means it will be covering at maximum 9 chunks. What I want to do to make it efficient, so that's not like you're scanning every block because that will take forever. That's bad code. Inside each chunk there'll be a data section, and this is just in the code
Yeah.
of holding all of the power boxes that exist in that chunk. So when it scans, when the power box is placed, it will scan the 9 chunks around it, the one that it's in, and the 8 around that. Compare its distance, whichever one is, I guess, shortest, it will connect to, or something along those lines. And then this will make. What will be interesting about this is it can store then a number, the distance between it and the next power box and whatnot. And when you connect a thing that needs power, it will be connected to this network more or less, and it will figure out which one it can draw power from the easiest. And then we can also start calculating directly without going through a ton of blocks and finding the shortest route or something like that.
Yeah.
How much wire it's going through and how inefficient. So there's going to be a little bit of an inefficiency, like making something with silver wire will be more efficient than copper wire. But of course, copper is way more common than silver. But
Yeah.
silver is a more conductive material. It's just copper is more often used in real life because it is more flexible and it's just way more common. Using silver is an expensive material.
I
And
mean, that
obviously
would
we'll
make
need a
it.
little bit of balancing, but
It would make it a lot easier for the player that way. But if you wanted to make it like easy on yourself and also the server performance, you could have a system where you have like a wire tool where you right click the power box and you right click the item that you want to power, and it just creates that wire for you instead. That might be a bit easier than having it auto configure.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that I was thinking about for the generators and stuff. I really like the ideas there. Yeah, and we mentioned sulfur batteries. That's all good.
Yeah, I just general load on the CPU too. Um, like if you something 32 blocks away that you have like a generator from, and the thing means that you need. I guess you would need three: one that is connected to the generator, one that is that's in the middle, and one that is connected to the thing that wants power of those boxes. But that's just 3 data points instead of 32 data points.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's so I get the I really don't know how Industrial Craft does it because that's so many things for the copper to go through. I don't know if the wire like looks at its nearby neighbors and is like, "Ooh, this one has more power, so I'm going to take it." And then over time the power is distributed on the network. That's not too computationally expensive, but that means like every tick there's like power being flowed through. I don't know.
How that works. That's a good point. I've never really thought about that.
Yeah, I don't think about these things until you're a coder.
Yeah, yeah, I don't really know.
I don't really
Is
know
it
either.
is it even possible to check that?
I actually I tried looking at it once, I believe a year or two ago, and like I couldn't figure it out. Like I couldn't. I looked at the actual like wire block code, and it didn't seem to be the thing that was like the engine of making it happen. So I still have no idea. I couldn't find it in the code.
Strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a pain to kind of. That's going to be more of a developer's pain though to work around that. Yeah.
So that's why I'm leaving that out until an update or two after 1.9.0.
And
That will be
hopefully,
one
if you
thing of
restructure
itself.
the code, might make it a bit easier.
Yes,
on yourself.
totally.
All
right, we should probably wrap it up here.
Yeah, I was about to say the only other thing was lighting, and I quite like your changes on lighting. I think that's fine. And I think Glowstone says it is really because it's quite difficult to get hold of.
Yeah, you guys contribute your own ideas about lighting. Like that's definitely going to be a big topic of debate for a little while of how to approach that.
Sadly, no debate today. I'm happy with with your suggestions. So that's it.
All right, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you on that server.